Recently, there was a survey done, and the survey was by Gallup, which is a reputable employment development company, and they found that 85% of people hate their job. They did a global survey and they found out only 15% of employees were happy at doing their work and they were engaged at work. So what's going on with the other 85%? Because there are technically 1 billion people across the world who are working full time. So why do 85% of people, they're just not happy with their work, right? So there's so many reasons why the statistics are quite high. So firstly, we'll start with the boss. Many people, they don't have a good relationship with their manager, and their dynamics kind of off, and they don't feel too keen to be productive and hit the targets that are required, right? Now, any relationship at work with your boss, with your co-workers, can impact how you feel about working with other people, and that does really set the tone. I remember times that I've had managers who've been kind of insecure, passive aggressive, or they were kind of, you deal with so many different personalities. Sometimes you deal with managers who might be career women with kids, and then they're keen to give you flexible working and let you do your own thing. They've been kind of friendly, in my opinion, to let you be autonomous and do what you want, because she's not too concerned about being an overbearing micromanager. Then you've got other managers who might be the girl boss type, who want to be overbearing and micromanage every little thing you do and stand over your desk. You've got the same thing with men. You might have, as I say, have worked with some kind of like insecure, attention-seeking men who want to impose their authority because they might feel a lack of control in their personal lives. So they're kind of unfriendly and coercive at work. And then you have other male managers who kind of might have a militant, efficient approach, which I don't mind. People who can be quite direct and assertive, I kind of get on well with that, because I can be a bit aggressive too. So if you match that type of energy, I'm kind of comfortable with that. We can be kind of blunt and direct and get things done. So the dynamic with your boss really can impact on how you feel about dealing with your work. Because if people have a negative vibe in general, not just specific to you, like a negative boss who's kind of unhappy in their life, that vibe kind of spreads, right? It's not something you can just work independent of. I've worked with some people who have really bad energy, some colleagues they just have a really bad vibe. Maybe they're unhappy in their personal life, but it just spreads and it creates a negative environment to be working around every day, right? If you don't like the people you work with, as we see in the second point here, likely you want to enjoy the time you spend at work. Now, I'm not saying we have to love everyone we work with and treat them like they're our best friend forever, but it really does create a vibe, you know? I think about sometimes when I make these videos, I try to create a vibe for myself before I record them, right? Sometimes I might go for a walk, listen to some music and things like that. And it's the same thing with at work, right? You might be listening to some music, go get a coffee. You're trying to create a vibe, yeah? And that vibe is intangible. That's why companies say they have a company culture, and it's kind of hard to define until you're there. It's not just simply the work you're doing. So the co-workers and the manager can really set the tone here. So let's look at how people feel about some of their bosses and some of their co-workers in these examples here.
It's actually weird how managers expect our young asses to take these jobs so serious. This job is not my craft. This job just pays my bills. This job is not my life. I'm here, I do my job, I go the fuck home. What more could you want?
So it's interesting here. She's giving the point of working a job and not being too invested in it, which I can understand, right? Sometimes it's not enough for some jobs that you're just doing your job, right? They want you to be overly invested. They want you to be visibly excited. It's not enough that you do the work and go home. You have to be visibly excited. I remember one time where I was having a performance review, like informal performance review with my manager's manager. He would always mention how my expression was kind of blank. Even though I was listening to him, he thought I wasn't listening to him, and he mentioned that point several times. Like, I can be listening to you and taking on board your feedback without having visible facial expressions. He got the impression I wasn't interested in the work, even though I was working extra time, whether it's in the mornings or in the evenings to get extra work done. It's not enough for the work to be good quality. It's not enough for you to go above and beyond and even do extra work. They need you to be emotionally invested and visibly emotionally invested. They can't even take the hint that you're doing good quality work, so that's good enough. Or even that you're putting in extra hours, and that's good enough. I need to have excitable energy. And if you don't have that, like you said, it doesn't work out for you always in the corporate environment. And the thing is like when people start bringing that into real performance reviews, like manager starts bringing it up, it starts becoming a bit ridiculous. It starts becoming like, you can't win in that situation. You can't win by having better technical skills. You can't win by having more work output. It just like, it becomes a lose situation. You work harder, burn yourself out, and don't get paid more, and get dragged into meetings with your senior managers for not seeming too invested in the work itself. It becomes completely ridiculous. And the thing is, what they really want, they want you to be so emotionally invested that it's visible that you're desperately seeking their validation and approval. They want you to be weak, docile, desperately needing the job, the company to survive like others. They want you, it makes you a better employee, not if you work hard and you're emotionally detached. It makes you a better employee if you're so visibly invested in the job. You're easier to control that way because your entire sense of self-worth and personal identity is invested in the job. And now when you're not that, and you can be emotionally detached and you understand a job is just a job, it's not your whole life, then like I say, that's when they might look to push you out the company, because they're like, this guy, he's good at the job, but he's not a life or death scenario depending on this job. And that's why minimalism matters. So you can say, F you, pay me, or I'm out, right? If you're so dependent on the job because you bought into the standard 9-to-5 lifestyle where, like I say, you bought a big property with an expensive mortgage, then you kind of have to, work like a slave for a company. You might be in an unhappy, miserable marriage where your financial ties are there, or had kids before you could afford them. That's why minimalism is important. Saving money and investing money is important. So you have that flexibility to just say, oh, if a job's not happy with you just doing the job and getting the work done, and they want some kind of emotional investment, you can just kind of say, well, I'm doing the work required, and if you lose your job, you can just go get another one. This is the key thing that you have to realize. You're living in this kind of warped reality where they just want to control every aspect of your life, even your emotions, right? They really don't get, firstly, the generational gap, which I covered in some recent videos, but they more importantly don't get that, people can see through everything now. It's not just seeing through government corruption or media lying. It's, the company that you work for kind of misleading you about how great it is to work at a company. Your job is just a job. A vote is just a vote. It's not going to change your life. It's the same thing with a lot of social dynamics in general. At work, outside of work, it's just transactional now. It's just like, how can this person benefit me to further my objectives? That's just the dynamic of everything. The soul or the essence of like corporate culture, society's culture is kind of gone. It's just very blunt, like I say, F you, pay me, like I'm doing this work, pay me, I mean, to pretend it's not that anymore has just become ridiculous. And the only people who are buying into any sense of depth in this society are people who are kind of benefiting extremely from it, which would be the bosses or the co-workers who might be getting paid a lot. Many people are feeling very out of place at work and in society. And what mainstream society doesn't get, the normies, or however you want to describe them, it's not going to end well. How many people are being deliberately disenfranchised by this sick system? So here's another example of that.
I was back, bro, you called out. I say, bro, I was sick. He then says, yo, I come to work sick all the time. What's your excuse? At this point, I'm frustrated and I'm already looking at other jobs. But then I start to think, bro, if I get another job, I'm likely gonna deal with the same BS, the same stuff. And then you start thinking bro, if I'm gonna go through the same thing at another job, why do I wanna keep working? Now look, today, I was supposed to come to work at 10 o'clock and leave at 3. Bro, 10 o'clock came, I was in there chilling, editing videos, doing what I had to do. When I see what time it is, it's 1 o'clock. And I'm literally just thinking, I'm bro, I gotta get me another job. It's not gonna last here, bro. But then again, I'm yo, I don't wanna work no more. So, bro, you know what I did? I clocked out and left. I be seeing these people on TikTok, they making...
So, he goes off on a bit of a tangent after this, but the key point is, and I know it might sound like he's being lazy, right? But, the bosses, they want you to violate your own health and your own employee rights that people work to institute, whether it's through labor unions or anything like that. They want you to work while you're sick. And the thing is, why? The companies you're working for are making millions or billions of dollars. They're not going to pay for your poor health. Many people actually have health issues because they're overworking and they're stressed about their finances. And you end up dealing with the same thing at each job. So it's if you're switching from one job to the next, it's not necessarily a better option. And that's another reason why 85% of workers kind of hate their job. They feel very trapped. And the key thing is, just to finish up on his point, is around freedom, right? Freedom is worth more than money. If you know you're going to be going from one job to the next and dealing with the same kind of circumstances where you're treated like second-class citizens, then it makes sense for you to kind of pursue freedom rather than more money, right? And whatever that freedom would be, whether it's part-time work, freelance work, multiple income sources, lowering your living costs, all of those things are worthy of consideration if you really are unhappy day to day. Like I say, he might sound entitled, but he's making some fair points. People don't mind working. They want to just control their own schedule. A lot of what's coming down to people's unhappiness at work is that they want to have time freedom. And time freedom is different. Time freedom is different from financial freedom. Time freedom is the freedom to kind of live and work on your own schedule while still, earning a decent income, which I think is perfectly acceptable. Now, there's other reasons why people are not necessarily happy with their job, right? Here is around type of work. Now, type of work, sometimes people find themselves doing any old job just to pay their way out, as it says here, right? People just need to work to earn a living, and sometimes that's all it comes down to. And although we don't necessarily want to be in a position where we're living to work, but that is the reality for a lot of people. People might start a job and they become quite excited, but then they see through the BS and they get a bit disillusioned, and it just becomes a way of budgeting to your living costs, saving and investing, and having a bit of free time to do what you want. It's very hard to escape that harsh reality when you realize your corporate job might not give you the financial freedom you're looking for, so you really shouldn't be so invested and die hard with it.
When I complain about work and people are like, well, get a new job then. I'm like, no, I don't like working. It's not the job, I just don't like working. So getting a new job will not fix this core issue. Plus, at least I know what to expect at my current job. It's the devil you know, right? Unhelpful advice.
I don't want a job. I don't want to be a corporate girly. I don't want to climb the ladder. I don't want to be a boss babe. I don't want to do any of that. I don't want to be the breadwinner. I do not want to do that.
Come to the realization that I just don't want to work anymore. Like, it doesn't matter the job, the career path, the location. I just don't want to fucking work anymore.
What I want to do? I want to be home. I want to be cooking in the kitchen. I want to be cleaning. I want to be shopping. I want to be making brownies. I want to be cooking dinner.
I think it's kind of interesting there. So I just landed on that screenshot of she saying she doesn't want to be a boss babe, right? And I think the truth here, and I know some women in the comments are going to get sensitive about it, but many women just don't want to work because deep down in a lot of women's nature is to be the housewife, right? To, be taking care of a husband and a kids, right? So that would bring a deeper sense of fulfillment to them. And that's why sometimes they're at work and, like I say, they treat co-workers like they are their family members, want to have family team events, things like that. And they try to turn their workplace into a family environment, Secret Santa, team dinners, team events. Like I say, it's just like family will bring her more fulfillment than treating her junior employees like a fake surrogate son or daughter, right? Which they end up doing a lot of the time. And, it's just like, if you really want to live the kind of housewife lifestyle, you should just aspire to that and not the girl boss life. Like, what I think a lot of these women don't want to do, they don't want to take the hit in terms of their living standards, right? If you're a woman and you're a stay-at-home husband or stay-at-home wife, and you're married to a husband, of course, you're going to have to take a hit in terms of your living standards. You're probably going to have less money. You'll be dependent on your husband's salary for both of you to live, and then you can budget effectively. But a lot of people, a lot of women especially, they're not going to make that because they're going to be focused on their social status. Their social status will take a massive hit, and they'll lose a lot of their, I wouldn't say community, but their social circle group, because of so many women are working or focused on their career these days, that if a woman makes that decision to step away from it, she might feel kind of isolated and out of place in society. Society used to have quite a close community sense, so a lot of women who were not in the workforce or working part-time or just kind of jobs that weren't really focused on careers, just a job to earn a bit of extra money for the family, there was loads of communities that would kind of stick together, so there's a place for them, and team looking after kids, kind of community clubs, things like that. It doesn't really exist anymore, right? Even places of worship like temples and churches and things like that, it's not really so common. So there's not a lot of place for women who want to exist outside of the work environment. And some of the things she mentioned very quickly there, which is like cooking, cleaning, shopping, making brownies, all these type of things, it really would be important for her to, or more fulfilling for her to find a man, get married, be a housewife, have kids, and it'd be more fulfilling for her, right? Rather than doing a corporate job that she doesn't like. So there's so many social dynamics, and many of the reasons why people are unhappy at their job, right? People who are, 85% of people based on this survey, there's so many social dynamics around it that kind of have nothing to do with work. It's kind of to do with the social breakdown we're seeing, and people really wanting more autonomy over their life and having a meaningful life. The other thing here would be commute, as you can see, is another reason. People are spending a third of their lives at work, and then they're spending so much time on top of that commuting to and from a job that they just need an internet connection and a laptop or a PC to work. Many people could simply work from home, but companies want people to commute to work, and that's some of the most depressing part of the day, or the time wasting part of the day. You're stuck in traffic. I know, for example, in London with the train stations, we have the famous or infamous TfL underground. We have these underground trains like subway trains in New York, and they're the most depressing place, in the morning when you're traveling to work, when you're traveling home. It's so depressing. The energy is so bad there because so many people are just unhappy with their lives, and then they kind of drop the facade of the fake niceness that they got to put on in the office when they get into that train, and they can kind of be themselves. And it's like you have a packed train full of depressed workers. It's very bad energy there, and I'm sure many of you can let me know in the comments, what is the energy like if you're commuting on public transport? It's really not that positive. Other issues is people feel they're having stagnant growth, no real career growth, no real promotions. They're doing the same repetitive tasks, and this really does wear people out over time. Not necessarily within the space of a year, but you're doing the same exercise year after year, right? For example, you might have same procedures and same reviews you do each year, like a risk assessment you do each year around the same time of year. And it's kind of the same as the previous year, but you redo the process just for the sake of ticking a box and saying something is done. You have the same type of maybe performance reviews, development areas, kind of same manufactured nonsense in terms of what you got to improve, same type of social dynamics. You're not going anywhere in terms of not only your career, but increasingly people's lives. In the past, people might have not needed much fulfillment from their career because they were getting it from their social life, their relationship. Like I say, many people are not having family or kids, right? Or even having healthy relationships. So they're looking for so much fulfillment from work that is just not going to be there because it's not meant to be there. It's meant to come from a community. You're not going to find a community atmosphere at work, but people are trying to force it. You're not going to find healthy gender relations at work, but people are trying to force it. So it's all these type of dynamics that really make things intolerable for so many people, right? They're like, I can't deal with this anymore. So another thing is around a poor attitude from the employee can create a bad area at work, a bad air or aura at work. So the thing is, if you're dealing with negative co-workers, that really can make you kind of depressed and not really wanting to deal with them. And we've got an example of that here.
For the longest time, I truly felt like I was the only one from my peers who was truly miserable at work. And that was really frustrating and isolating because I feel like I did all the right things, right? Went to school, did the internships, got good grades, and still ended up not super happy. And I would be very vocal about it with my peers. I'd be like, hey, is this all there is? You went to school for what exactly? And they would all be kind of weird about it. And at the time, I knew you had to play the corporate game, but I guess I didn't know the extent. So then I would have side conversations with coworkers and be like, yeah, I don't know what's going on either. And it became this joke. And I was like, this cannot be all that there is.
She's making some good points. You just have to understand, if you're in the corporate environment, 85% of people are clearly unhappy with it based on the survey. Everyone's faking it. People feel incredibly lonely at work. And I'm going to have a video coming up soon on that. There's a lot of deep dives into how lonely people are feeling in the work environment. Now it's leading to mental health issues. People are not going to express the dissatisfaction at work. They're so dependent on the job because they need it to survive. So they're not going to have a side chat with you as a coworker and see yeah, I'm really unhappy with job or my life in general, or doing this for the rest of my life. You're not going to find relatable people at work. You're going to have a fake relatable thing at work. Are you watching the same TV show as me? I'm watching Power season 5 or whatever. I'm watching this new Netflix show. That's the type of nonsense you're going to have at work. Other things is you'll have co-workers who might make jokes that you don't really resonate with, or it might be a joke at your expense or at an expense of your demographic. I've seen many female co-workers make jokes about men. A specific example that comes to mind was a co-worker on our team had left, a male co-worker, and he actually went to work at Coinbase, and then he went to work at another hedge fund. And his wife, which I didn't know at the time but found out later, his wife actually was a senior manager at another hedge fund. And people were making jokes about him, like, oh, he's riding the coattails of his wife. He's always one step behind his wife, things like that. And I'm not the type of person who's most offended about anything, but and then female co-workers were laughing and male co-workers. And it's just a bit like there were so many jokes at the expense of men to favor women that it just reached a point where it was getting ridiculous. And at that point, I did point it out to the manager, like, how many jokes are we allowed to make at men, but we can't make at women, right? We can say men, a husband is riding the coattails of his wife's career. We can't say a wife is riding the coattails of her husband's career, because I see many, like a special treatment that women get throughout many corporations, which you see through my video. But it's always biased against men. There's so many jokes you can make at a men's expense. And people don't realize that when you're on a team group chat, not everyone's going to find the joke funny, right? You might find it funny, but I'll remember that. I remember all the little disparaging comments that, in that case, it was a male co-worker making a joke about other male employees who had left the firm. But I remember all those little things because, not that I'm personally offended about every little thing, but it's like after a while it becomes a trend and it becomes quite annoying when you see these type of biases.
Systems or the ways that they choose to express themselves. But I do not think it is okay for us to allow this in team chats where there's no ability to opt out. I don't want to be exposed to this type of workplace culture, and I don't think that I need to be in order to do my job. I have previously brought it up to the site manager that I'm having a hard time adjusting to this expectation that I need to put up with this. That site manager was in agreement with me, and I have gotten the sense that they have tried very hard to get some control over this. In social services, there's a very high turnover rate. Managers are stressed and have way too much to take care of, and they don't have time to monitor chats all day long.
So she might seem as someone who's completely different from my demographic. Maybe she's like more of a liberal feminist character, but she had similar experiences, right? She mentioned, and I skipped ahead slightly, but she mentioned that, she was on team group chats and she was working around reviewing financial fraud, and co-workers were making jokes about people who've had fraud on their bank accounts and losing money, and she just didn't find it funny, right? Particularly when their job is to prevent the fraud or help customers deal with the fraud, having internal team group chats making fun of customers losing money through financial fraud. It's not very nice to kind of hear that. So, like I say, it just becomes a vibe where when your co-workers are kind of having completely different value systems from you, it's just very difficult to work with them. And I just want to mention as a side note, I think some of you find it interesting, because particularly when we're dealing with very dysfunctional social dynamics, not only just the economy, when you're dealing with these dysfunctional dynamics, what ends up happening is you've got to be very careful of how you deal with people. Now, we all know the videos I've made around co-workers not being your friends, but I want to dig a bit deeper into that. There are three litmus tests that you should run with people when you're dealing with them. And I thought about this the other day. Do you have the same values as them? Do you have the same goals as them? And do you have the same culture as them? So that's VGC, values, culture, values, goals, culture, values, goals, culture, VGC, values, goals, culture. Now, what do I mean by that? If you have the same values as people, for example, you have conservative values, you're going to have common ground and you'll be able to connect well. If you have the same goals, perhaps financial freedom, you're going to be able to connect with that and maybe discuss investment ideas. If you have the same culture, maybe you're from a similar background or you consume the same media, you might be able to connect well with them. Now, but in the workplace environment, often you're around people, they don't have the same values. You might be conservative and they're left wing. You don't have the same goals. Your goals might be financial freedom and quitting the rat race, and their goal might be to stay in a corporate job for the rest of their life and climb the corporate ladder. You don't have the same culture. You could be someone, and it's not necessarily based on race, but maybe interest. You could be someone from an Asian background and you're into martial arts and you watch WWE, and then you have a co-worker who's maybe white and they listen to I don't know, Destiny or Vaush or the Young Turks, something like that, and they have taste in EDM music, right? When you don't have similar values, similar goals, or similar culture, you're going to have like just dysfunctional co-worker dynamics, right? And that's what ends up happening. And she's making a fair point here. I probably have very different values from her. We might not connect. So these do kind of lead to issues in the workplace. Another point is around overworking, right? Many people feel they're being overworked, they're paying more tax, having more work to do, not getting promoted. They're just, there's more expectations of them, and they're getting less and less out of their job, less and less out of their life, right? And, you know, when there are layoffs, there's less people to do more work, and it becomes quite stressful for them because they could think they're going to be next to be part of a layoff, even though they're doing extra work to cover people who'd been let go already. And that's when it can get quite difficult for people. And then another point here is around ethics, right? Now, ethical investing is becoming more popular. Ethical behavior when it comes to each other is kind of in decline and things like that. So everything's become very transactional of how people can use other people to further their career or further their lifestyle growth. And it really does depend, you know, because I think there's a society we live in has no real morals. It's all about using people, and that makes it quite difficult to be in the workplace environment. And we have a great example here of this.
Is constantly coming up to me and telling me, hey, this is what we're down this much, do this so we can improve ourselves, we got to reach our goal. But every customer that comes across me is telling me and complaining to me about how they don't have money. Most of these people that are coming to us are either senior citizens who have retired or mothers with children to take care of and mouths to feed. It's like, yeah, while I am trying to, make a little bit of the commission that I make on the side, I still want to be understanding of the person. And I feel like I'm constantly being pressured in order to sell more. And it's just like, bro, these people genuinely do not have money. And I'm being pressured to sell more. I'm being told, well, make sure you try to get them to get this. Make sure you try to get them to buy multiples. And it's like, most of them don't even want to buy one. How am I supposed to get them to buy multiples? And I feel
So this is what happens when you have an economy that is just ruthless capitalism, right? And I don't want to blame capitalism. I'm not a socialist or anything like that. But when that's happening is you just have a system without any ethics, right? And this is a simple example, but that can apply to anything, this toxic sales pressure, because the money is dried up in the economy. And when there's a recession or completely dysfunctional economy like we have now, there's all these toxic, fair, unrealistic expectations put on salespeople, even in the retail industry, not just sales and trading and finance and tech sales and things like that, where you're just having all these sales targets that are just impossible to meet when people and companies just aren't spending. And another factor is people feel jealousy, right? People feel jealousy about other people's job titles, social status, even successful personal lives. You might have someone in a happy marriage and then someone who's perpetually in dysfunctional relationships. They could be jealous of that, jealous of having a new car, a new watch. That's why it's always best to downplay your life wins with other people. People delving too much into your personal life, they're likely to find something to nitpick and become jealous about and project some competitive energy on you. Jealousy about your watch, buying a new camera, all these type of things I've seen, even small things. I remember I bought an iPad Pro and then some co-workers started to get jealous, even though technically they want a higher salary and could easily afford it. It's so many weird things. Any little positive aspect of your life, I recommend you just keep it away from work. You'll instantly get the feeling people are getting envious of you. Just keep a low-key lifestyle. That's what I recommend. So then what's keeping people from leaving? 85% of people don't like their job. Why are they just still sticking around for a job that they hate, right? So we've got many cases, many different reasons here. Some people, it's responsibility. They've got to work these difficult jobs. They've got mortgages to pay. And this is why I keep telling you, be real careful before you get married, before you get a mortgage, before you have kids. If you're going to be miserable working a job just to provide for them, you're going to be like a lot of people you see who are middle-aged or older, and they're kind of worn out on life because they've pursued very unsuccessful lives, to be honest, very unhappy lives just to follow the standard path that doesn't work for them. And I'm not trying to talk people out of having a mortgage, buying a house or having kids, but really think about the society you're living in. How are women behaving? What's the divorce rate? Like 50%? Would you want to bring a kids into a society that's becoming more and more difficult? Even if you see the occasional win, maybe your favorite politician gets elected in America, or You see a bit of a push towards homeschooling. Can you balance all these difficult things you're being expected to do just for the sake of having a kid or getting married? Really think about it realistically. Don't just dive into it, because one thing I realized working at on the trading floor of an investment bank I won't name now, there was someone who had kids, and he was being very honest. He says when he talks to the other parents at his kid's school, many parents he knows quite well, sometimes they have honest conversations, and some of these other parents, they regret having kids. They don't hate their kids, but they had kids because it was the thing to do. Or some people similar with buying big houses, getting married, it was just the thing to do. People saw all their friends getting married, so they thought, oh, I need to find someone and get married. Don't follow the crowd. Don't follow the crowd. Increasingly, we can see people who are following the crowd, they're not happy. They're not living fulfilling lives. So really think that through, right? Next, we have lack of job opportunities. We see so many layoffs, particularly in tech and finance, literally thousands of high-paying jobs. Management, middle management, senior management, kind of mid-level junior roles are going. They're getting outsourced to India, parts of Eastern Europe. Also, AI and automation is around the corner. There's going to be more of that. So there's going to be less and less people with less and less jobs available. So people are trying to reskill, trying to find something that could work for them. And there's an example of it here.
I did all the things they said to do, and I live in a rental apartment. With me lives my parents and my 5-year-old with autism. I'm the breadwinner. And if things continue in this exact way, meaning with my earnings and how the economy is, I would never have more than this, which is the bare minimum. I don't want to live this lifestyle anymore. I want a soft lifestyle. I want to work from my phone and from my computer, and not for some corporate company that is going to just squeeze every second out of me. I want to have freedom. It honestly breaks my heart to see how many of us are stuck in this exact same rut and conflicted between stepping out of what we've been told is what we should aim for, which is to go to school and get a job and work these jobs until we retire, except at the rate that things are, we're never going to retire.
So, firstly, she says she wants a soft lifestyle. And again, the soft lifestyle would come from being a housewife. But if you don't want to do that, you want to be strong, brave, courageous, hashtag girl power, hashtag girl boss, hashtag believe all woman, hashtag me too. Have I said enough hashtags? I don't know. If you want to be that, then, you're going to have to deal with the reality of living and working the harsh life of being a man, right? And on top of that, we're not living in good times. We're living in hard times. If you want a soft lifestyle, then you're living in the wrong era. That's just what it is. I don't expect to have a soft lifestyle. I don't expect most people watching here to live a soft life, right? And what do I mean by that? What's a hard life? I'm not saying you're going to be working hard manual labor. I mean, you might be working hard at your job and not making enough as much as you'd want, or as much would be reasonably expected for a reasonable lifestyle. And that's why you're going to have to make one of those compromises to really get your freedom, whether it's lowering your living costs, living abroad. There's so many different options out there, right? You can't follow the mainstream path. She's talking about following the mainstream path, getting like a college or university degree, and then it's just ending up her being in a small 1-bedroom rental apartment and can't really progress her life. So firstly, everyone should give up the idea of a soft lifestyle, and the ways you can do that is obviously living your life, and many people are struggling right now, but also developing the mindsets. It could be stoicism, it could be doing martial arts on a regular basis, because there's so many aspects of martial arts which is about dealing with being in the offensive, being a defensive, dealing with challenges consistently. That really builds you up. You shouldn't think you can take a soft path. You should really build yourself up. You're dealing with harder times, you become a stronger version of yourself. That's just what it is. Like I said, the whole samurai mindset, you can look into samurai culture. There's many books about that help you build the mindset you need to survive in a time like this. So throw the soft lifestyle fantasies in the trash. Again, how many people who are Gen Z and millennial or even older are living in this, oh, I wish it was the 1950s baby boomers life. That's what I was promised, a house in the suburbs and a white picket fence and leafy green suburbs. It's just not the reality you're in, right? You're dealing with a corrupt government who's rigging the system against you, and many corporations who are kind of laughing in your face and exploiting your time. So key thing is here is to notice that the system is squeezing your time. Many people, there's a reoccurring theme here, people want time freedom. 85% of people, not all of them are complaining that they want to make more money. They want freedom over their time. They want to be more autonomous. That's a reoccurring theme here. So if you are living in this type of scenario, you need to think about alternative solutions, right? And which I think she kind of is, and many people are these days. And it really explains the kind of survey that we see here. So when it comes to the fear of being wrong, many people are fearful of making the wrong decision because it feels like when you're in this system, you're walking on a tightrope, right? Financially, socially, you say the wrong thing, you're cancelled. Make one bad financial investment, it could really set you back financially. But also, I think people can make calculated decisions, and that's why I recommend, even though this is technically a finance career channel, you need to be careful of all your decision making. And the best approach to decision making is spending a lot of time thinking about your decisions, right? And for me personally, that could be walking in nature, thinking through my life decisions and what to do next, spending a lot of time alone, having a thinking chair, which I have like a deck chair, which I kind of spend some time there and think through life. These are all important to remove the cloud of other people's judgment over your decision making. Remove all the propaganda and time wasting politics or whatever that's kind of consuming your mind day to day, and make clear decision making independent of all the BS to work through this kind of crazy dysfunctional system. And I think everyone at least once should bet on themselves, bet on their goals, whatever that would be. So whether it's in your 20s, your 30s, your 40s, whenever you're comfortable, to really bet on yourself. And that could be self-employment, that could be pivoting your career to something you actually want to do. Really try to push in the direction of what you want, because like I say, the society's not going to give it to you, the system's not going to give it to you, and you can't always be living fearfully, right? And one thing you notice about people who are successful, particularly people who strike out on their own and do their own thing, they have a higher risk tolerance. Most people are like, oh no, if I quit my job and I'm unemployed for 1 year, how will I get a job again? But you can plan ahead in terms of saving up money. You can plan ahead in terms of making sure you build up a solid foundation in your side business, whatever that would be, before you take that leap. There's so many ways of kind of managing those risks, but you have to have a higher risk tolerance. If you have a very low risk tolerance, you'll end up like everyone else in a dead-end 9-to-5 job or a situation you hate. Many people, like I say, they opt for marriage even though it's not the right decision for them. Many people are fearful of the unknown, and that's a similar thing. If you want to jump to another company, you have to be happy to take that risk, in the sense that you're taking a jump from one company to another for a 20% pay rise. You might be dealing with a more difficult manager. You don't know if your coworkers are going to try to stab you in the back. You just have to go with the flow, right? We don't live in this stable, functional economy and companies and system and company loyalty and stability. Just throw away the idea of stability. The same way you throw away the idea of a soft lifestyle, throw away the idea of stability. You could be served a complete curveball tomorrow, and you're like, hold on, how did this happen? You plan to maybe live in a particular country and then live off your investments. Your investments might decrease in value. The country might go through financial instability because of civil unrest, and then you have to rethink your plan. Always be on your feet, thinking on your toes. And there's a key term for it. You need to be hyper flexible. And I listen to different people's perspectives, and someone I was listening to, they're a successful management consultant and they're self-employed, run their own business. And he was saying the only people who can afford not to be hyper flexible are people who are making $10 million or more, which might seem a bit high, but I think that's realistic. Anyone making less than $10 million, you have to be hyper flexible, which means if you can put yourself in a position where you can live in different countries, you can make money from different income sources, you can completely restructure your life if you need. And there's many ways you can build up that tolerance. Earlier I mentioned martial arts. Other cases which he mentioned, which is quite interesting, even though he's a multi-millionaire and can live anywhere in the world, he would say for at least certain times in his life throughout the year, even though he can afford not to do this, he would deliberately opt to work in an uncomfortable scenario, whether it's a super small budget apartment where he'll stay for a month, or a hotel room that's super awkward and clunky, just to realize he can survive on the bare basics, right? He doesn't need to be, in some cases, where he has been, in a fancy rental home or rental apartment in Dubai, right? In this kind of fancy, really high cost of living places where he'll be paying like $10 grand a month rent in one of these Dubai houses, which are quite high given that he's just there by himself or with his wife. They don't have any kids, renting a place to live where you only have two people, where it's 10 grand a month, does seem a bit high and unnecessary. He can afford that, but he'll opt to sometimes be in those super low cost environments just to put himself under a bit of pressure and realize he has to be hyper flexible in these type of society we live in. And that's how you deal with the fear of unknown. You make yourself stronger and more tolerant and adaptable to these type of scenarios. Then we've got cases where seniority complex, some people are really addicted to their job title and they want to stick with that. Or of course, if you have a good salary, people don't want to job hop. So these are all the reasons why 85% of people are unhappy in their job and they actually want to, they end up sticking with it, right? So why are people unhappy? Unhappy because of a difficult boss, difficult colleagues, boring type of work, having a long commute to work, no career growth, bad coworker attitude, being overworked, having unethical business practices, coworker jealousy, and they end up sticking with it, right? Because they need the salary, they might be lacking the social status, they're very risk averse, don't want to be wrong, don't want to deal with the unknown of job hopping or starting their own thing. There's a lack of job opportunities, particularly with the layoffs in these tech industries and finance and so on. And they kind of have responsibilities, so they stick with the job. That's the harsh reality for many people out there. And I've worked in some of those high intense environments for over a decade in the finance industry, in sales and trading and things like that, at Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley and many other major investment banks. And I offer a career advice service. There's a link in the description if you want to speak with me directly. 2 recommended videos on your screen right now. Let me know in the comments section how you feel about your job. If you hate your job, have we covered the point? I think we've got many points covered here. And I'll see you next time.